I want to formally welcome you to this session today around sharing with you some thoughts as far as the four essential types of intelligence are concerned that we believe we all need. And by the way, as I'm admitting people, I love this subtitle called Understanding and Leveraging Those Intelligences. And by the way, we are hosting our 29th monthly Free Friday Lunch webinar. And especially for those of you who are regular supporters, welcome to you and to everybody else. And thanks for your support. It's great to share these things with you. Right. For those of you who don't know me, I head up an organization called Soldati, where we believe in growing leaders and impacting results. We are launching a brand called Soskiso in the next couple of months. Exciting developments, but I'll share that with you after we've launched our new website. A couple of housekeeping matters. Please, in handling the content, I want to encourage you to focus specifically on those areas where you believe you've got some more work to do. Those areas where you believe, upon reflection, you can work on more, spend more time on in order to become better for your sake and the sake of everybody around you. Please mute unless we ask questions at the end. I always aim at 27 minutes, more or less, and a couple of minutes for Q&A at the end. Please mail me if you want to be added to the standard distribution list. If you don't want to wait for somebody to send you our invitation. And then please send me future topics that you would like me to showcase as far as these sessions are concerned. It's our 29th session. Like I said, at some point, ladies and gents, I'm going to run out of topics, and I would appreciate it if you can send me any topics in relation to leadership, self-leadership, emotional wellness, etc. are the things that we specialize in. And then this recording will be available on our website towards the end of next week, as it always is. And for those of you who've missed previous editions, if you go into our website, soldati.com, under the resource tab, Insights, you'll find all the previous recordings or the previous 28 sessions as well. Couple of disclaimers. First of all, I don't have the magic wand. You don't attend our session or my session and you've got the topic that we're addressing today being the four intelligences under control and waxed. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I am trying my best to share with you all the fresh perspectives, and hopefully that would lead or pave the way rather to you living life differently, better in relation to the topic. I want to invite you to reflect, to hold up that proverbial mirror and ask yourself, how am I doing? Are there things that I can focus on more? And where can I improve? And another invitation for you is to please pay it forward. Pay it forward. What did Barney the Purple Dragon said for those of us who have had small kids? It's a question of sharing is caring, right? When I prepared for the session today, I came across this AI-driven video, which is great in content, but it's very pathetic, poor actually, to be honest, from a delivery point of view. Typically, this AI voice. But what I loved at the end was this, and I took a screenshot. It said, do not prepare the road for your children, but prepare your children for the road. And I think that's profound, talking about paying it forward. Right, gentlemen and ladies, let's get to the topic. The four intelligences, IQ, EQ, SQ, and AQ, which I will share with you today. Admitting the last person, and then I think it's the end of our 5 minutes. First one being IQ, or intelligence quotient, which is simply the metric that we use to measure intelligence, being the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. Now the question is, can I change my IQ? And that's a very important question because we typically think that IQ is the be-all and the end-all. Well, if you look at that website, and I will always promise to share with you only credible content, which I agree with, it tells us that, yes, you can temporarily change it, but if you don't continuously work on it, that improvement will fade. There's another website that tells us that researchers are still debating whether it's possible to raise our IQ. Let's hear what Jordan Peterson, the Canadian psychologist and author, says about raising your IQ.
You can increase your IQ with exercise and weightlifting because your brain is a very demanding organ. So if your cardiovascular system is healthy, that's a huge deal. There's nothing more important than staying in physical shape to maintain your cognitive ability. But no one's figured out how to increase IQ with cognitive exercises. If you practice a complex task, say a video game, you tend to get much better at the complex task, but it doesn't transfer over and make you generally smarter. You can suppress IQ by not breastfeeding them. That's a good way to have stupider children. Breastfeeding confers something like a 3 to 4 point increment per year breastfed.
Why is that?
Nutrition. The brain's a very demanding organ. It uses a tremendous amount of your metabolic resources. And so nutrition and exercise make a huge difference.
Nutrition and exercise. So we can do stupid things to reduce our IQ, like using drugs and excessive alcohol, or unfortunately if we get dreaded diseases like Alzheimer's. But really, even if you look at that last source, we can't really increase our IQ. It's going to remain constant. The question then is, why worry about it, actually? If we think about it, why bother? Accept your genetic makeup. It's something you can't really work with because it is what it is. And do what you can to focus on the other forms of intelligence where you can make a massive improvement in terms of being intentional about it and in terms of working towards getting to where you would like to be, which includes EQ, SQ, and AQ, which I'm going to share with you just now. So let's talk about emotional intelligence. And again, just briefly, EQ is simply not the abbreviation for emotional intelligence, which is EI, but EQ is the metric, rather, the quotient of measuring emotional intelligence, as opposed to EI being the concept. So the father of EQ is a guy called Daniel Goleman. Him and his team coined this phrase a number of decades ago. And interesting enough, and I want to link this back to IQ that we just covered, through their research, they discovered that only 7 to 10% of our success in life correlates to IQ, our IQ. And once again, IQ is not something we really can change, so why focus there? Our success, ladies and gents, much more relies on our ability or our level of EQ, SQ, AQ, which we're going to cover next. Pausing at emotional intelligence, there's a definition generated by IA, or AI rather, but I like this one, which comes from Goleman and his team. EQ, or emotional intelligence, then referring to our capability to manage and control our emotions, and very importantly, because a lot of people forget the second part, and possess the ability to control the emotions of others as well. If somebody comes into your office and bangs their hands on your desk and say, "What did you do?" We've got a choice, right? And in that choice, as far as emotional intelligence is concerned, we need to ask ourselves, what am I going to do to stay calm and to manage and control my own emotions? But then, as far as the next step is concerned, saying to that person, "John, Mary," and by the way, don't tell them to relax. That's the wrong thing to tell them. "John, Mary, grab a seat. I just boiled the kettle. Can I make you some coffee? Would you like a rusk with that? Let's have a discussion about this." That's an emotionally intelligent people, or person rather. And I don't like the word necessarily control somebody else's emotions, because that's difficult. I rather want to use the word manage, because I think the only way you can control somebody's emotions, especially if they get to that stage, is through a straitjacket. So to manage and control my own emotions and possess the ability to manage the emotions of other people. You see, IQ is only the tip of the iceberg. It's really about EQ. And from my experience, I don't know about you, I've worked through or for many organizations, had large teams as part of my structure, and I've never met a person that was, quote, too stupid, unquote, to do their job. Have I met people that couldn't perform their jobs because they had the wrong attitude, they had very low EQ, etc.? Yes, absolutely. And that reminds me of a quote of a lady that I once worked with, which was part of the Exco team I served on. She was the HR exec. And Debbie said, at the point where someone's nuisance value starts to exceed the value that they're adding to the organization, it's time for that person to leave. Profound. That dot was my dot though. And the reason I put that dot down was simply to say that you can get a person that's got average IQ, but that scores very highly as far as EQ, SQ, and AQ is concerned. And they will be very successful typically. As opposed to having somebody that's got a very, very high IQ rather, and scores low on the other three intelligences, and then they will unfortunately not be successful. Fyodor Dostoevsky, the Russian author and poet, said, "It takes something more than intelligence to act intelligently." Reminds me of this cartoon that's from an April edition of the Sunday Times that we got to support that quote. This is my current read called Primal Leadership. And here's a write-up on the book. It says the following: a leader who is emotionally intelligent will create a positive climate for their group in which productivity, collaboration, and performance will soar. This is the first paragraph in this book, ladies and gents. Great leaders move us. They ignite our passion and inspire the best in us. When we try to explain why they are so effective, we speak of strategy, vision, or powerful ideas, but the reality is much more primal. Great leadership works through emotions. Critical. As a leadership consultant, I track the priority leadership skills as it's surveyed, and the biggest survey that I track gets released again this year, the 4th June. This was the last result. Top 19 leadership skills, and look at the area I've blocked in blue. Number 4 on the most important list of priority skills is emotional intelligence skills. And in fact, if you think about it, if you look at all the forms of intelligence, especially the last three, EQ, IQ, SQ, you will see that that thread of all three of those intelligences runs right throughout all these top priority leadership skills.
All right, Wyndham Clark had some anger in this swing. Oh. And he is going to be using not driver.
So that happened last weekend at the PGA Championships. And Wyndham Clark, yes, he apologized for his poor behavior, but in fact, that doesn't help. It's too late. I often get asked, Hekkie, what is good leadership? Now, ladies and gents, you and I can talk for days about what's good leadership. But if you ask me two words, apart from the obvious like ethical leadership, etc., I think in summary, leadership is example, or setting the example then, plus influence. In what way do I influence the people around me, and what way do I influence myself? I don't unfortunately have the time in our short slot today to share with you all the ins and outs as far as EQ is concerned and the tools in order to become better at emotional intelligence. But I want to share with you something that I shared with you, in fact, in our last webinar last month. A very, very important tool, the tool of self-talk. Self-talk is the most powerful form of communication because it either empowers you or it defeats you. Self-talk in order to apply self-control. If Wyndham Clark told himself 3 seconds, give myself 3 seconds, take a deep breath before I will allow my emotions to take or to get the better of me, you would not have seen that clip. In the old rugby rules or scrum setting rules rather, the previous set of rules, the ref said, pause, engage. And I want to challenge you that if you feel that you are going to lose it, so to speak, to take 3 seconds, take a deep breath and say to yourself, pause before I engage. And if you want to get access to many more tools that I've shared in April last year, please go to Resources Insights once again, and you'll see on that date, in that month, I did this very much detailed Free Friday lunch webinar on emotional intelligence. Our next one is social intelligence, which is the ability or our ability to understand, interact with, and manage people effectively in social settings. Carries on, but essentially it is about understanding the social landscape and how to navigate it effectively. Iliana Stareva wrote this blog, which I liked the content of. And the question she asked was, the first question is, why social intelligence matters. And she states 4 things. She says, first of all, social intelligence is the cornerstone of building and maintaining meaningful relationships at work, away from work. She says, social intelligence enables individuals to communicate clearly and persuasively, tailoring their message to different audiences. Effective communication. The third one, why she reckons SQ is important, is because it assists us in resolving conflict. Social intelligent individuals excel in resolving conflicts by understanding the underlying emotions and perspectives involved, she says. And then finally, she says it's important when we talk about leadership and team dynamics. People with high SQ understand the diverse strengths and weaknesses of team members, promoting collaboration and creating a positive working environment. This in turn enhances productivity and innovation. And I don't know about you, but to me that sounds quite good actually. And then she says, or she highlights 4 key things that you can focus on to develop your SQ. First of all, to practice active listening, right? Most important thing in communication is probably active listening. What did Kavi say? Listen with the intention to understand as opposed to listening with the intention to reply. Secondly, she says we need to cultivate empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes to gain a deeper understanding of their perspective. Third one she highlights is to observe the nonverbal cues. Observe the things that are not said in order to become more socially intelligent. And then finally, she says, embrace adaptability. People who have high SQ can read the room, they can understand the social dynamics that's taking place and adjust their behavior accordingly. And that makes me think, ladies and gents, of another characteristic of a very good leader, and that is surely self-awareness. Good leaders are self-aware. And that ties back into adaptability as one of the things that she says or identifies we can use to develop our SQ. And the cherry on the cake is this actually. I Googled, look at this question top right. I Googled, does social interactions and networks make us live longer? And AI tells us, yes, absolutely. It will help us to not only live healthier lives, but also longer lives. What a bargain. Last one is AQ. And I think in today's day and age, adversity intelligence is probably one of the most important. It measures our ability to cope with difficult life circumstances and challenges, ultimately determining how they respond to adversity and achieve success. And very importantly, the link to resilience is so strong. Look at this. The AQ, adversity intelligence, is a way to measure humans' ability to be resilient. It is a measure of our ability to be resilient, our ability to recover from negative life events and bounce back in a positive way. Love this quote from Steve Maraboli. I have shared it before, but I think it's such an important message. Life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient. If you ask me to join your LinkedIn network, you will be on the receiving end of a lot of good stuff, I hope, I think, including quotes that I put out there as I think about life and leadership and wellness. This is one I put out a couple of months ago that says, stop worrying about the things you cannot change in that moment. Because you just worry and worry and worry for nothing, and you're giving yourself an ulcer, including worrying about these kind of things over which you've got zero control. My wife told me this once in response to typically what those things that I cannot change or have an influence over. She said, you know what? You cannot control someone else's or some other organization or government's emotions and actions. You can only control your own emotions and your response to those actions. But what I want to share with you and highlight to you is your gift of taking charge. So the book I wrote on self-leadership, chapter 1 is take charge. Taking charge, because we often underestimate our ability and to what extent we can take charge. Especially of those things. And you can run through it, glance through it in your own time. But the reality is, if we do take charge of these things, we will empower ourselves, as far as body, mind, and soul is concerned, to be in a much better position to be able to handle the challenges that life throws us. And my question to me and your question to you, hopefully, is to what extent am I taking charge of my well-being in relation to those areas? And to answer that question or questions, I want to share with you in closing, four coping mechanisms that might assist you to increase your IQ, your adversity intelligence. First one is to live in the moment more, to take a deep breath and just appreciate the here and the now. Feel the heat of the water running on your face in the shower, as opposed to worrying about what's going to come next, the meetings I need to prepare for, etc., etc. And that talks to mindfulness. I'm busy reading a book on mindfulness. A psychology friend of mine said, Hekkie, you need to apply mindfulness more. And I said, Tony, I know you're the expert. You've been a clinical psychologist more than 40 years. I hear you, I'll do it. And I am absolutely focusing on it more. Love this quote from Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, that says, if you're depressed, you're typically living in the past. If you're anxious, you're typically living in the future. But if you're at peace, if you are content, you're typically living in the present. The second one I want to share with you as a coping mechanism is stop feeling overwhelmed. We all have feelings of being overwhelmed. Sorry, can you just mute if you don't mind? And we'll feel Q&A just now, if that's okay. And one way how you can feel less overwhelmed, ladies and gents, and this picture of the glasses beautifully summarizes it, is to prioritize what needs to be done and simply to focus on those priorities. Focus and prioritization, critical. Third one I want to share with you is to get an accountability partner. Get somebody to talk to. My wife's my accountability partner and vice versa. Get somebody to assist you, especially if you need to open up and you need to become vulnerable in order to get things off your chest and to ask for advice and positive input. And the last one I want to share with you as far as a coping mechanism is concerned, which should assist you in increasing your IQ, is to make more time to reflect, to stand still and ask yourself, am I busy with the right stuff? Am I even coping? And shouldn't I share something with my accountability partner that needs to be shared and get some help? Abraham Lincoln said, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Ladies and gents, if we don't get off that proverbial hamster wheel, the treadmill, enough, we're going to just feel and find ourselves being drained and on the receiving or on the end of not having enough energy to cope with the challenges of life. Take more time, make more time to reflect and stand still before we get back to the grind. And please note, across all those 4 types of intelligences, the interconnectedness between them, especially as far as the last 3 is concerned. And by the way, you can do tests. You can go and Google it. You can do tests and they get assessed as far as all 4 these types of intelligences are concerned. I want to bring it to a close and just read this to you that I got from a LinkedIn article, which says, success today requires an approach that integrates IQ, EQ, SQ, and AQ. While IQ may open doors, EQ, SQ, and AQ sustain success, supporting our ability to build relationships, adapt to change, and solve complex problems from multiple perspectives. These four intelligences, and I want to add by saying I think specifically the last three enable us to achieve individual success, empower others, create value, and foster sustainable growth in any endeavor. Ladies and gents, we all are work in progress. We all are somewhere on that scale in terms of where I would like to be in life. Also, as far as these four intelligences are concerned. Doesn't matter where you are. It's a question of intentionally, as long as we are being intentional about it, focusing and being intentional about growth and development and doing something about it. What did C.S. Lewis say? You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and you can change the ending. Richard Norton said, intentional living is the art of making our own choices before others' choices make us. Art of making our own choices before others' choices make us. And on that note, ladies and gents, I am going to close off. Please join us for our next Free Friday lunch webinar. I need to update our website with the next three or 4 months of topics. Please invite me to be part of your LinkedIn network. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing as we are almost out of time, which I apologize. But please, if you have any questions, go for it. Before the silence gets awkward, I look forward to seeing all of you at our next session next month, talking about the importance of sleep and drilling down into that a little bit more, which will hopefully assist you to get better quality sleep, to be able to be more productive, and also to be more resilient actually in life, and all the other added benefits that comes with that. I wish you all the best success. May you have a great weekend, and until the next time, look after yourselves. Thanks a lot.